there's a lot of responsibility that goes into managing people. And I just see it as something that like you really need to pursue, like getting good at that.
You're listening to the Architect My Life podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping empower women creative entrepreneurs such as architects and designers have it all: business growth, financial freedom, and health and wellness. I'm Shlachter, your host and CEO of MGS Global Group. This podcast is also brought to you by the MGS Global Group. We provide BIM modeling and drafting services to overwhelmed architects and design firm owners. Now let's dive into this episode. Hi everyone, our guest this week is Sarah Wingo of Win Design Co. Sarah is a licensed architect and licensed interior designer. She started Win Design Company in mid-2020 to fill a hole in the market of residentially informed commercial spaces and hospitality-informed residential spaces. The firm became a partnership in 2022 with a past colleague and a longtime friend, Ashley Kirkland. The two have aspirations for continued growth in the residential and boutique commercial design industry. Sarah also teaches as an adjunct professor of the interior architecture at the Corcoran, the George Washington University, for both a Studio 4 course and Leadership in Design, a curriculum she designed to provide graduating students with the leadership skills needed to excel in the profession early in their careers. As a leadership skills advocate, she has served the architecture profession at multiple levels across the industry. I'm so thrilled to talk to her today. Welcome to the show, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Aya. It's great to be talking with you.
So I'm really excited. I know there's a lot to cover, but this is my standard question I ask all of my creative entrepreneurs. Tell me about a childhood experience or a person that led you to your career or inspired you to become an architect and interior designer.
Sure. Okay, so to start off, I'm one of those people who knew that they wanted to be an architect from like childhood. I think at age 10, I like committed to actually stating the words like I'm going to be an architect. And it was really through an architecture unit in school. So I think that's kind of rare nowadays that elementary schoolers get introduced to architecture, but I'm a huge fan of promoting architecture in schools, mostly because that's my story and that's my experience. But the project was that we were all, it was like a classroom project where everybody drew a family, a budget out of a hat, and then you had to design a house to meet their constraints. And so I just loved the idea of like problem solving for this family. Of course, the house was designed by a 10-year-old. It was like not cute at all. But I just loved the idea of like building and designing things for real people, and especially this sort of like puzzle problem solving element that I was able to directly translate into a career path ahead of me. I always loved puzzles and problem solving, and that felt really, really connected with architecture.
So how about growing up in Texas, Austin, Texas? I was just there. It's amazing. But what was it like growing up in Austin?
Yeah, I mean, Austin's a fantastic place to grow up. I mean, I really could not have imagined a better place that was like so connected to an urban environment, but also so many natural and outdoor activities. My family loved hiking growing up. We were always going to like natural swimming holes. So certainly like very connected to nature. And then, we were close enough into the city that we were spending time downtown. And it's certainly like, as I got closer to high school or even like going back from college, just exploring the downtown area, and the food scene in Austin is so fantastic. It just felt like a very manageably sized city to grow up in. I know it's so much bigger now. I can't imagine like, I mean, maybe the experience isn't so different now, but it was a great place to grow up in the 90s and early 2000s.
It's interesting because when I read your profile that you were from Austin, I was just there 2 weeks ago for the Independent Lodging Congress. What they do is we explore different sites, all boutique hotels. And South Congress in Austin is amazing. Yep. There are like 5 or 6 in South Congress alone. And I'm like, I wonder if you were there or you've toured all the boutique hotels there.
Yeah. I mean, the one that's like the longest standing, or the one that I'm just most familiar with, is that the South Congress Hotel with all of those like little micro unit rooms that are just individually done, and then the hallway is just that kind of outdoor courtyard. So there's no real interior space other than the units themselves. but I know that there's so many other boutique hotels that have sprung up around there. So it is just, I mean, yeah, South Congress is fantastic.
So why did you move away from Texas? Was it for college?
Yeah, it was for college. So again, always wanting to go into architecture. I was just doing a lot of research in high school about, like top architecture programs across the country and really what set them apart. And I was actually introduced to Auburn University through a documentary called Citizen Architect. And it was a documentary about the Rural Studio program that Auburn runs, where students are building either homes or community buildings for the towns in Hale County, so kind of New Bern and Greensboro, and all these kind of smaller, they're just really really rural towns. So people who would otherwise never have access to architecture or design, and really the mantra of the studio was providing dignity through design. And it was the first time I was kind of woken up to the idea that architecture was not just for, multimillionaires doing McMansions or, civic projects in downtown Austin. Like really there's a lot of dignity that can be done through creating just a really well proportioned and well designed home for somebody who would otherwise be living in a trailer home. That was really like the competition out there was, you're either doing living in a trailer home or you're working with the Rural Studio to get a house built. And the whole goal and one thing that Rural Studio is still doing is working on home prototypes for less than $20,000. So it's the 20K home. And so I went to Auburn for that initiative and actually participated in that initiative. But yeah, I moved away from Texas to Alabama for school for that program.
So you spent your 5 years in Alabama.
That's right. Yep, in Alabama.
And so talk about your experience there from Austin to Alabama. I don't know much about Alabama.
Yeah.
Like I'm Ohio, by the way, and people don't know anything about Ohio. So
yeah, it's the micro cultures across like every single state are wild how different everything is. Because I kind of always thought like, well, I'm from the South and I'm going to the South, like there's not going to be a culture shock. But the difference between Texas South and Alabama South is pretty big. I remember going there and getting called out for drinking unsweet tea, and I was called a Yankee, and I was like, oh, like it was really sweet tea or nothing in Alabama. And it was it was just such a really welcoming environment. And I think, looking back on it, this wasn't something that was like missing from Auburn, because we certainly found other experiences to, take trips. But I think, there's certainly a logic to going to school in an urban environment where you actually have access to like architecture around you. But I'd say kind of going to school at a big state college like Auburn University, but then being in this like small, almost like micro school of like the School of Architecture kind of on the outskirts of campus really was like this combination feeling between like the big football state school culture and then also this like almost like a private liberal arts college, like off on the outskirts. So I'd say it was like a super tight community in the School of Architecture. And we were just given so many experiences to both travel, study abroad, go out and actually take part in the community of Alabama by participating in the Rural Studio. And then I actually spent my fifth year doing an urban planning emphasis in Auburn's Urban Studio in Birmingham. So kind of had like all different types of experiences at Auburn. And I just loved my education there.
So that's great. Since our podcast is really about entrepreneurship, what led you to becoming an entrepreneur and starting your own studio or design firm?
Yeah, so many things. I mean, I don't think there was any like one moment like in a professional practice class or something like that where I was like, yeah, this is the moment that I'm definitely going to run my own business. But I'd say, one of my most defining experiences in college was getting involved in the student government organization for architecture, the American Institute of Architecture students. And I'd say I started loving the idea of organizing people, organizing programs, really setting like strategic vision for, coming up with new ideas for lecture series or like event ideas. So kind of really being in like the decision maker and delegator role from that perspective. And of course, it took a lot of trial and error. I would not say I was like a total natural at it from the beginning. I think there were a lot of communication skills I needed to learn and organization skills, but I'd say that was where I really started on this idea of like, I love kind of like this creative director role in a people management sort of way alongside my architecture school experience. So I'd say that was kind of my first clue. Um, and then I mean, at Auburn, I just had a lot of examples of professors who, had either started their own firms and were teaching or, were professors full time, but kind of working on the side or, maybe would consider themselves both. Both of those roles were full time jobs. But I think kind of this like starting your own firm didn't seem totally out of reach for me. It was something that kind of a lot of people in my life were already practicing. And so those were kind of like my first instincts in terms of like what I was super passionate about. And then coming out of school, I got the advice very, very, very early on, maybe like my first year out of school. Somebody told me like, when you envision yourself at like the height of your career, do you envision yourself like running somebody else's firm or running your own firm? Like, are you the CEO of a huge firm out there, or are you running Sarah Wingo Design? And like very quickly it came to me like, no, I'm running Sarah Wingo Design. And I mean, now of course it's not called that, but it was just such an immediate response for me of like, no, I'm running the ship, and it's something that I created. So that kind of set me on this track of, okay, like how is that going to happen?
So I think because you've been a leader in your school organizations has really helped out a lot. And I think the most successful entrepreneurs and business people have really very good organizational skills, especially in programs, processes, procedures, and people management. And
Yeah.
that's really key, I think. And I think you got it. You're not just a designer, but I've never heard anyone early on in their careers talk about managing programs, process, and people. And that's the most
Yep.
important thing in running a firm, really, is the people, right? You
Yeah.
hear people leaving their jobs because of poor management.
Yep. I know. And to me, again, like I would not say I excelled at it from the beginning, but it was certainly like the most interesting thing to me. And it was something that I saw such importance at from the very beginning of, I just think it is the most, I guess I'll use the word noble, and just like there's a lot of responsibility that goes into managing people. And I just see it as something that like you really need to pursue, like getting good at that, because yeah, you kind of can't do design in a vacuum or without a trusted team alongside you. And I think you don't have a trusted team unless your team trusts you. And so it's just like this kind of compounding realization that like I need to just like pursue leadership skills kind of above all else. Like I just think that's kind of the key to running any business, and especially a design firm.
So before we go deep dive into your design firm and business, can you talk about your mentorship and teaching, and how do you even have time to do all that?
I'd say like luckily it all feels very symbiotic. Like so it doesn't feel like, okay, I have to turn off my brain from one thing and switch over to the other thing. It's all things that feed on each other. And it's like, I am able to do well in my practice and have energy for it because I teach, and I'm able to do well and excel in teaching because I practice. It's all this kind of like all of those things like pour into each other's buckets. I think it doesn't feel like this huge draining amount of tasks on my plate, is at least what I love to tell myself. But yes, it's something. So, throughout post graduation and entering into the profession, I have, just always. I mean, I'm just an extrovert, and I've always been very connected with the architecture industry and community. And I also just really like architects. Like that was, moving to DC for my first job out of school. I was like, I want to make architecture friends. So I started with the AIA Emerging Architects Committee in DC, getting involved with them mostly just from like a volunteer and member position at first, eventually kind of becoming the chair of that program, but really throughout that committee sought out just a lot of mentors who, maybe just had like 3 years more experience than me, but could really like help me out through those early years in the profession, kind of through like an understanding and empathetic lens of figuring out how to do architecture and design for the first time. And I mean, a lot of those mentors are still great friends and mentors today, and have helped me in both like starting my own practice and being able to bounce questions off of. And it's allowed me to really see role models for how I can serve other people coming up behind me as a mentor myself, mentoring the next generation. So it's something I always want to be very involved with is, both emerging professionals and students, and really just being like a sounding board for them as they kind of talk through what their concerns are in the profession, or their interests are, or what their life goals are at this point, and how that might be feasible for them moving forward. And that really led to, as I was starting to think about going out on my own and like making that a reality, I knew I needed like something that was going to be a sure paycheck, to be honest. And so I started thinking around, like, I'm not trying to get a part-time architecture job. Like, I don't think you can start an architecture firm and also work part-time for another architecture firm. So I was kind of just like bouncing that idea or that question off of another mentor of mine. And he was like, well, he happened to teach at George Washington University, and he's like, there's a opening for a studio professor if you'd like to go up for it. I was like, absolutely, I would. Sounds like a perfect fit. And so I did, and it's been better than I ever thought it would be, mostly from the perspective of just being involved in the next generation of students, and kind of being the best version of the professors that I had, but also the professor that I always wish I had, who was, supportive and engaging and saw the best in your ideas and didn't drag you down and tell you that you're worthless, which I think is all too common in architecture school, of just like getting creativity kind of beaten out of you in some ways. So, I just love, again, like kind of using teaching as an opportunity to practice leadership.
That's great, especially when you have employees. That is really important.
Yep.
Again, that's another problem that people have now. A lot of the employees don't have a continuing education, or not learning, or there's no proper training or mentorship. So what about the Christopher Kelly Leadership Development Program? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So the Christopher Kelly Leadership Development Program, long name for a program, but it's important because it's named after a real person, Christopher Kelly, who is an emerging architect in DC, who is very committed to leadership development among emerging professionals. And unfortunately, he passed away just over 10 years ago. And his friends were very committed to the idea, his friends and his wife, were committed to the idea of creating a program in his honor, something that he always wanted to do, of instilling leadership skills in emerging professionals and really giving them the hands-on training that they're not given in their firms. Like you were saying, that sort of continuing education piece, especially the type of continuing education that you really need to like excel in your career beyond just like bathroom details and waterproofing details, really learning like that the soft skills that allow you to rise quickly in your career.
Yeah, I saw the program because I sponsored one event there. It's a lot of like leadership and business related topics that were not taught in school. Is this a DC only organization, the Christopher Kelly? It is, right?
It's not actually. It started in DC, but there are 10 affiliate programs across the country now. So there's like Atlanta, and there is one in Ohio. Where it is, like Indiana, I think. I mean, they're kind of all over. I guess I won't start a list if I know I can't name them all. But
that's great.
there's 10 now,
So
and it's growing.
That's really inspiring. So when did you decide to quit your job? Because this is what a lot of people are always asking. Like, how did you know? Was it difficult? Did you have enough savings? So, what was it like from quitting your job to starting Wind Design? I love that name, by the way. It
Oh,
sounds
thank
like
you.
the Win in Las Vegas. I'm like, damn.
I know I would the win in Las Vegas was like not where I got the inspiration for it, but I'm
But
not
it's
mad about
Winco,
the
right? Is it
association.
from your last name?
It is from my last name, so it's spelled different from my last name. My last name is Wingo, and I wanted it to be like somewhat related to my last name, but kind of with this like open door idea that I could bring on a partner one day, and it wasn't like, okay, I have a partner with like Wingo Design. So yeah,
It's
and that's
powerful. I
also
was like, damn, I'm interviewing Wind Design. You're setting yourself up for, global and international growth. It's
yeah,
it's great. I love it. So yeah,
that's the
you got
goal.
sidetracked. So tell me.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. So starting my own firm, again, it was always something that was like kind of top of mind, but it wasn't something that I was, let me see, like, I didn't have a like step by step business plan of like, okay, in 3 years, like I will start this, and here's like one step that I will take every month in order to get this going. I'd say it was really accelerated by the pandemic, as a lot of ideas were either decelerated or it was just like a catalyst for a lot of people in a lot of different things, right? So I'd say like my story in the pandemic was, I was working for a small firm that did almost exclusively restaurant work. And the restaurant industry was hit pretty hard in the pandemic, if you heard. And, I was very lucky to keep my job and keep my, projects there. Like we had projects that were still running and going well, but there was certainly this like kind of uncertainty about like the future of what was coming in the door, just because like the entire world was feeling uncertain at the time. And it was this kind of wake up call to me of being an employee is not the best job security that you can have. Like really the best job security that you can have is kind of being in charge of your own uh, finances and future and projects, and really being empowered in the position of like, okay, if we don't see projects coming in the door, like how are we going to solve that problem? How are we going to pivot? How are we going to find new clients or new market sectors that we do, or all of this? And so it was really like that sort of train of thought where I was like, okay, I'm no longer of the mindset that going out on my own is the riskiest thing I could do. I was kind of like, I think keeping my job as an employee and hoping that everything works out okay is the riskiest thing I can do. So kind of to your question of like, did you have a lot of savings? The answer is no. I did not. And, I am married, and I think in order for um, I'm kind of more of like a risk taker. I was like ready to just jump out and be like, okay, let's do it. Like I can get it done. And my husband was really the one who like talked me down and was like, how about you start working on the side first and like kind of give us proof of concept that you can like find clients and make money. And his whole thing was like, if you can make $10,000 from a side business and have it in the bank, then like I'll support this going out. And like I think we'll be okay. So that was my goal. Was like get 10,000 in the bank from side work, and I was able to reach that. I mean, as you know, starting a business, it's not like every dollar that comes in the door is profit. Like you kind of have to pay a lot of money for business licenses and software and hardware and all of it. So it took more time than I thought it would to actually have like that money in pure profit, but kind of as soon as I hit that mark, I was like kind of talking with my husband, and I was like, so can I, like, is it time? And I was just so excited to go out, and we both kind of decided like, yeah, now it's time. So, I think from start to finish of doing side work, it was probably about a year. And then I went out on my own and never looked back.
So we have the same experience. I wanted to go out on my own as well.
Yeah.
And I was married with no kids yet. And I told my husband I'm so miserable because I had a bad experience with burnout. And I'm like, I really need to go. He's like, you can, but this is your allowance, $5 a day. That's like, that was 20 years ago. So like $40 a week.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
good thing about living in New York City is you can go to every yoga class in, like, in a yoga studio in New York City, there's 50. Your
Right.
first week is free. I'm like, damn, I can go to 50 yoga studios for free
Yep.
5 days a week and move on to the next. So I'm like, I can manage with $5 a day.
Yeah, I
And
know.
then my first client was doing shop drawings for a mill worker,
Hmm.
and then it grew from there. But it also is important to have support from family or a spouse.
Right.
Like, people ask me, how come you're so successful, how did you do it? I'm like, well, I started with nothing, but I had support.
Right. Right.
You,
Exactly.
you can't just go out and not have like a backup plan.
Right. Right. That's exactly right. And I think it's hard to talk about it in terms of, yeah, like, what do you mean by support? Does it mean like you're getting funded fully, or is it just like emotional support? And I would say, like, yeah, for me, it was definitely more of that emotional support and health insurance, which I think is important. So that was like a great thing that I was kind of able to take advantage of right away and not have to worry about, because I guess part of you don't really need to say that a part of like going out on your own needs to be getting married to somebody with health insurance, but I'd say like knowing what the logistics of going out on your own is important, and I'm very grateful that I had health insurance covered by my husband. So that's
Same story.
yep.
Like, my husband gives, because he has a steady job in a
Yep.
university. I wouldn't be able to, because it's expensive.
Right, it is.
So Sarah, like, in your bio, you talk about residentially informed commercial spaces
Hmm.
and hospitality informed residential spaces. I'm curious,
Yeah.
what is that?
What does that mean? Yeah, because
Yeah.
nobody else really talks about it like that. Okay,
Yeah.
I would say, yeah, I should find a way to talk about that in less words. And I'd say like the shortened version of that is like the resi-mercial market. And that is, I'd say, a term, I think it was coined by Kelly Wersler. This kind of,
Oh, I love Kelly
I
Horstler.
know, I do
Yeah.
too. I don't know that I need to give her credit for resi-mercial, but she may actually deserve the credit for resi-mercial, of designers practicing in both that sort of high-end residential space and kind of boutique commercial space, where there's not a huge difference between like the types of spaces that you're creating for both residential and boutique commercial clients. And it was a trend that I was actually seeing in real time and in real life of, working on restaurant jobs at my previous employer. And the clients were always asking, like, we want this to feel like somebody's dining room or somebody's living room or somebody's lounge, like using very residential words to describe like the feeling that they wanted people to experience in a public space. So whether it was a restaurant or a multifamily amenity space or even like a gym or something. I think the idea that like public space means institutional is very much done. Like nobody just wants, big vinyl seating bolted to the ground anymore. It's like, we want the durability, we want the cleanability, but we want it to feel like you're in a very comfortable, welcoming environment. And I'd say that goes both ways in that people in residential worlds, which is everybody lives somewhere. In the residential market, I think more and more our houses are meaning even more to us, and, they're entertainment zones or their workplaces. And so we need our homes to be multifunctional in a way that you think about in a commercial sense. You think about like, okay, how can this private dining room expand to be, a dinner for 12 people versus an event space for 30 people? And now we kind of have to think that way for residential design as well. For, how can this be a private dining room for a family of 4, or it could also host a Thanksgiving dinner for 16. So I'd say like that's kind of the mindset that Win Design is bringing to projects, is just that sort of welcoming, warm, like as a adjective setting, but also durable, cleanable, stands the test of time, sort of hospitality setting. And then just like this adaptable, can be many things to many people, sort of layout and furniture and interior architecture of a space.
I think I know what you're talking about. There's a really nice residential building across.
Mm-hmm.
You go in and it feels like a hotel.
Yes.
Is that what I mean by hospitality inspired residential? You
Yes.
walk into the lobby, they have like a co-working space and
Yep.
like free flowing coffee.
Yep.
And like a pool and a really nice gym, but they're apartments, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
And also houses nowadays, you go to fancy homes, they feel like hotels.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I mean, even just bringing up like the co-working space that you were saying, I mean, we're just seeing every single project is integrating places to have co-working spaces. So even my partner Ashley and I were at an event last Thursday that was talking about like trends in the multifamily market coming up, and they were talking about they were talking about co-working spaces being like the main amenity that people want in their apartment buildings now. And then even like there was a big gym who was there, and they were talking about how they're it was like a luxury gym talking about how they want to integrate co-working spaces so that people can work out, grab a smoothie, work from the gym, and then maybe go back to a yoga class later on. So I just think like all of these siloed market sectors that we used to imagine of like, okay, you either do retail or you do multifamily or you do hotels or you do restaurants. It's just kind of getting more and more blended in a way that we really want to emphasize and lean into.
I think I agree with that because more and more people are working from home. And
Yep.
and the downside of working from home, in my opinion, is you wake up, roll out of bed, and then work all day in your pajamas.
Yep.
Like, and it's kind of isolating. But if I lived in an apartment and there's a co-working space, meet other entrepreneurs or people, then you know it's a plus.
Definitely.
So let me know how you landed your first big client, or what do you do for business development? How do you network? I know you say that mentoring is a form of networking as well, but in general, what's your strategy for business development and landing clients?
Yeah. So it is so, I guess I want to like knock on wood in that it has been very natural and has felt very, I think because I'm naturally a very like relationship driven person, it hasn't been something that I have ever had to force myself to be like, okay, today you have to cold call people to get those projects. Like, I think people trust people that they already have relationships with. So I think just not discounting people who you don't think are going to bring you work. Like, I have always been told by architects that you should not network with other architects because architects aren't going to bring you work. And I've kind of always had that in the back of my mind as this like guilty conscience of like, man, but I like going to AIA events and like I like networking with architects. And I cannot tell you how many projects I have gotten from other architects who have been overwhelmed with their own workload and like needed to give me a project, or thought like, that's not really like the market sector that I do. It's a little bit more interiors based. So let me see if Sarah wants to work on that instead. Like, I think just being trusted by the architecture community has been like a huge thing for us, is in terms of like getting recommendations from people. And that is very much how I got my first job, was reaching out to other architect mentors and just asking like, hey, I'm looking to take on side work. Do you have anything that I could help out with? And so it was kind of that initial like helping out other architects who are doing work, which ultimately led to those clients getting to know me. And then those clients, you know, they all have friends. And weirdly, like neighborhood Facebook groups in DC is a huge place for professional recommendations. So, you know, I don't go on there and post my own name. And especially like if you don't live in Capitol Hill, you can't be in the Capitol Hill Facebook group, but just kind of, I don't know. It's also not something you can really ask for at the moment of like, hey, can you go in and recommend me on the Capitol Hill neighborhood Facebook group? You know, you can't be specific where you're asking for recommendations, but I do on a very regular basis ask my clients to recommend me to their friends. Like, well, if you have any if you're going home for the holidays, if you know anybody who's looking for interior design or renovation services, like, keep us in mind. We'd love to work with you. People like you and your friends. Like, I think just kind of having this mindset of it's not business development, it's building relationships and just kind of having this positive attitude about it is, I don't know, that's been my strategy. It's worked so far. I would say at some point, and maybe coming up pretty soon, as we look for bigger and bigger projects, it is going to be less about like taking on, other architects' leftovers essentially of like, oh, I can't do this. Let's see if Sarah and Ashley want to do this. But, doing more of that RFP work and answering like calls for proposals and going after larger jobs like that. But I'm also kind of trusting that will happen naturally, that like the kind of more we network, the more we are going to be in positions to be asked to do things like that. So I'd say like kind of a natural or a taught natural inclination for just keeping trusted relationships around is probably the best thing for my business development. And I'm happy to answer more specific questions on that as well, because I think that's not really.
But I want to chime in on Facebook, what you said.
Yes.
Just to give you statistics, 4.4 million businesses were created in 2020 during the pandemic.
Wow.
And a lot of the businesses really rely on self-reliance, optimism, and digital-first approach.
Oh my gosh.
Like to your point, like in Facebook, right? We do architecture support. I've worked with a few women in architecture.
Yep.
And when people post, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, like, do you know any drafting companies? People will say, Aya can help.
Yep.
So it's, and the thing towards business and business development, we have the same sentiments. I'm not there to develop business. I'm there to provide a service for people who need, my services. Like, you're not selling, you're serving. That's always what I say.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I'm not there to sell. I'm not even selling. People say, call Aya. Right? So that's why digital first, like you need to hang out in the groups that make sense. You might be hanging out at the AIA DC, but you're also hanging out in Facebook.
Yep.
And people are recommending you. I mean, I've gotten like 6 or 10 recommendations just, in the last year or so.
Right.
Right? In Facebook. But a lot of people say, oh, no one goes on Facebook. That's for old people.
Old people have more money than young people. I'd rather be
You're absolutely right. I was just texting a friend and I'm like, yeah, because I have a community called the Architect My Life community that I used to do Facebook Lives during the pandemic because we were all in our basement. I'm like, you should join my Facebook Live. She's like, I don't do Facebook anymore. I'm like, oh yeah, young people don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right.
Yeah. It's like
they have the money.
Yeah, exactly. No, I completely agree. Just like kind of jumping in with a mindset of how can I help? Not like, well, let me pitch you let me give you my elevator pitch, but just like, oh, how can I help? Like, and have them tell me their problem and then talk about the solution. People just don't like being sold to. Like, I hate being sold to. As soon as I feel like I'm in a sales pitch, I like really put up a wall and like want to walk away from it. So,
So this Congress I attend, the Independent Lodging Congress, they're all hoteliers, CEOs, hotel owners, developers, but there's one rule. Andrew Benioff, when he went on stage, he's like, there's one rule in this conference. I know you guys are here to network and your bosses sent you here, but no selling, no pitching. We're here to build genuine relationships. And when you build genuine relationships, then you might land a job. And that's the number one rule. No selling and no pitching. Yep. And which is why I love it.
And that's such a good, like, he just gave everybody there a gift of like a skill of how to actually sell better,
and I hate it when people say, so what do you do? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like,
yes.
Oh, a better question would be like, so what brings you here to the conference, right?
Right. What do you want to learn? Like, where are you trying to grow? Yeah, like those are all better questions.
So what are the biggest challenges you've had so far in running your own business?
Yeah, I'd say I am very lucky that there haven't been any. Okay, no, of course there have been problems. I was going to say there haven't been any like major problems. Like everything's kind of micro day by day. I'd say I hit a point in my business, and this was probably like 6 months ago, where I was like, I have way more work than I will ever be able to do. And I never wanted to turn down an interesting project because I wasn't capable of doing it. And that might be selfish. Like that might be kind of, I would like to say it's growth minded. But I think sometimes like clients would be like, okay, if you can't do this, like you need to let me know. And I was like, no, I've got this. Like I can do this. And so I hit a point where I was like, luckily, I have more work than I can ever take on, or that I can ever get done. And how am I going to get this done? And it was kind of a mindset of like, do I hire contract workers? Do I hire an employee? And I had an experience with both contract workers and employees, and like they're all perfect for the situation that you need. But I was in a position where it was like, I have more like strategic work that I can take on. Like I want to grow my business. And I think it is very hard to grow a business one employee at a time. I don't know why, but it takes a long time for an employee to come on and be like running with it enough that it's actually like helping the business. Like, of course it helps right away, but it doesn't really take like a huge burden off, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I had always had in my mind that I wanted to have a partner at some point, mostly because like I love being in that decision maker role, but I mean, I also love having a partner by my side, whether it's in life or in business to, like really make those super big decisions with, and just like kind of feed on each other's ideas and energy. And so I guess I was at a place where I was like, I need to get a partner, and that's a big undertaking. So I had gone through in my mind like a lot of different types of partners that I might be interested in. I was like, maybe I partner with a contractor and we run a design build firm, or maybe I partner with somebody who does more base building architecture, so we can kind of do like full service, like base building to interior design. Or maybe I partner with somebody who does like in a totally different market sector, so we can just like expand as much as possible. But the one person who kept coming to mind was a former coworker of mine who I just worked super well with. And like, I guess the problem in my head was like, well, our skill set isn't that diverse. Like we kind of have a lot of the same skills. Like, is that really the smart move to bring on a partner who kind of like does what you do? And I ultimately like reached out to her and told her all of that and told her my concerns, and was just like, my intuition is telling me that like you're going to be the best partner for me because I just like you a lot. Like I think we're just going to vibe well together. And like, I can see us working together for 40 years and not getting in any sort of major falling outs. And so I'd say it was almost this like letting your intuition override like maybe the logic of what you've heard before. And of, I guess, like diversifying skill sets would be what I would say on that. And I am just so happy I made that decision. Mostly because it's like, I cannot imagine being a partner with somebody who I like that made sense on paper, but didn't work on like a day-to-day kind of emotional level. So yeah, I would say like the biggest like inflection point in my business to date has been like the decision to bring on a partner and who to bring on as that partner.
That's a smart move. You can't really do it alone if you want to grow a business.
Right.
Otherwise, you can hire like really high level professionals. But as a small firm, it's not the time yet. Right?
Exactly. I was like, I would rather have two partners here rather than like me and 4 employees,
So is your husband just so happy that you have like more work than you can handle?
I said, like,
does he still see you? No, just kidding.
I know. It's like, yes, he is happy, but like I'm working more than I've ever worked. So yeah, it's yeah, like yes. And
no kids yet? No kids?
No kids. No. Yeah, okay. No kids yet.
Do you plan to have kids?
And that's also like, I think a huge part of like the timing of when I wanted to start my business too was like, I don't want to do this as like a new young mom. And I would rather, I mean, sometimes, people don't get choices really in terms of like when everything kind of works out and when the best decisions are. But I'm so, yeah, like we do want a family at some point, and I kind of want to be in a position where I can like give more to my kids than I'm giving to my business, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's the right step. Build the business. Now you have a partner. Like
Yep.
There is a firm that I know that they're all women owned, and then they take turns giving birth like this, one
Would
person.
love,
I mean,
yes.
they didn't plan it, obviously, but
Yes,
that didn't
exactly.
sound
Just
right.
like
They took
going
turns.
back and
There was
forth
a
on,
schedule. No, but it
yeah,
worked out. Like when the partner was giving birth, the other partner managed the firm for the first 3-4 months, and it just and the
yeah.
thing about what you said about being an employee is not good job security. That's right.
Hmm.
Being your own boss, and I really appreciate what you said, is actually more of a job security because you have more time to take care of yourself, your family, your
Yep.
whatever it is, right?
Right.
So
Definitely. Definitely.
so, Sarah, what is Sarah like outside of work? What do you do? How do you spend time outside of work and
Yeah.
hobbies and things like that?
Yeah. I think as an entrepreneur, it's like, is there ever an outside of work time? But
I
no,
hear
there
you.
totally, yeah, no, there totally is. I mean, I've of recent, like since partnering with Ashley, I'd say I'm really trying to be better about like just setting boundaries with myself of like taking the weekends off. And I mean, yeah, there's a certain amount of burnout that really piles up after a while. So I think like having a partner and like thinking about bringing on employees, the idea was like, I need to treat myself the way that I expect and would hope that everybody else treats themselves. And that means like setting boundaries with work and being productive while you have your working hours and then like calling it quits when it's time to stop working. So I'd say outside of work, I spend a lot of time out, like when it's not winter, being outside, driving outside of DC, doing hikes and nature trails, like around the area with my husband and dog. So we love doing that. We love just taking like little weekend trips and drives and getting out of the city and just like exploring, I guess, like finding new things to see. And then like on just weeknights, I mean, I think you could find me pretty much either cooking. I absolutely love to cook and kind of using it every night as like an opportunity to do something creative outside of design and architecture. Like I think, I love being creative at work, but it has become almost to the point where it like doesn't even feel like creativity anymore because it's like it's a job, right? So yeah, I really see cooking as like my outlet for creation of new things. Uh and other than that, like really meeting up with friends and I won't even call it networking anymore, but like kind of either serving the community in some sort of committee organization or leadership platform, or just like getting together with people who I've met over the years and would call like true and lovely friends now that I just love to connect with. So those are kind of like the only hobbies I would love to get back into, like watercoloring and I mean, I have been getting a little bit back into like yoga and working out, so I'm happy to say that too. I'm a healthier version of myself now than I was in 2022. But yeah, would love to bring in more hobbies.
I know what you mean. As an entrepreneur, I love my job. It doesn't feel like a
Yeah.
job, right? I mean,
Right.
like my friends who are probably like working in firms, they're like, "Shut up, I hate you." Like I work every
Right.
day. I love my job. It doesn't feel like work, but yes, boundaries are important. So, what's next for Sarah and Wind Design? Where do you see yourself in 3 years, Sarah?
In 3 years, we just see like real continued growth for our firm. I'd say like, there's no number of employees that we'd want that would be like the exact target that we're trying to hit, but we definitely want to grow like a culture and a team. I think a huge part of running a business is, and what draws me so much to running a business is, not just like having the right people to get the work done. It's like, I want to build a community of people who all like coming to work and enjoy each other. And, in such a, just to the level where like our work is the best in the city because we have the best lifestyle and team and best place to work. So I think it's just continuing to both like get the projects in that will continue to make that happen for us. But really with this mindset of like the team and the people are going to be a top priority for us moving forward. So in 3 years, I would definitely see that as kind of our number one goal.
So we need to have another one in 3 years, another interview, right?
That's right. We definitely do.
This is I really enjoyed talking to you, Sarah, and congratulations with your new firm and the growth that you've seen. And thank you. I enjoyed our conversation. That was Sarah Wingo of Wind Design Co. Thanks for listening to this episode of Architect My Life, a podcast brought to you by the MGS Global Group. I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you would like to add to the conversation through your own experiences, I encourage you to be a guest on one of our upcoming episodes. Visit architectmylife.com/apply to learn how. I firmly believe that a strong community drives change and fosters success. If you'd like to be part of this community, join the All-Female Architect My Life Facebook group. Please take a moment to review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow me on Instagram at aya_architectmylife and Architect My Life Podcast. Thanks again for listening.